Today, we'll be looking at data-driven approaches to community organizing. What does data mean? How can we use data to inform our programs and policies around us? How does data shape our environment and our world? It's going to be a very interactive program and training. So please, I encourage you as we progress, if you have comments, drop them in the chat box and we'll get them answered. If there are comments, if there are questions, we'll get them answered. So today we'll be looking at what data is, dating your data, understanding the role that data play in community campaigns, and how to make campaigns more effective with the use of data. I'll also be looking at the intersection between data and advocacy, how you collect data, what data do you collect, how do you process data, how do you analyze data, and how can it be used to inform your programs. And also, what are the benefits of data-driven decision-making as a collective, as a CEO, as a founder? How do you ensure that you use data to inform your work to make it more impactful? And also, what are the different initiatives around us that we can use as case studies? What are the challenges that we currently have around data? And what are future trends in the data usage? So to proceed, I would just explain in this way to say that data is simply information, like Zainab said, facts and evidence that we collect to make sense of the situation of our world. Data helps us to arrive at logical conclusion about a problem or a decision, and data comes in different forms. For instance, the environment we live, for instance, in Nigeria, in a different state, you can't just wake up to say, I want to begin a program. You need to be sure of the data that supports the program that you want to do, to be sure that you are not jumping the gun. So there are different forms of data. Data is in different forms, in statistics, for instance, in census. The reason why census is carried out is because data, the government wants to get data to know the number of its citizens, to help the government to plan better in terms of infrastructure, in terms of development and all that. And also data comes in terms of storytelling. For instance, your experience in your community as a community member, your daily living in the community can help you get data to inform whatsoever you are doing. For instance, if you live in a community where malaria, you are very prone to malaria, or people are prone to malaria, your experience and your stories around that community can help you gather data to inform decision making and programs to ensure that that is eradicated. Also, data come in form of visuals, such as photo of your environment, maps, in different visuals that you can think of. It's also a data. For instance, the reason why a lot of people take pictures is not just because they want to have pictures for the fun of it, but because they want to be able to document that experience in pictorial form. So visuals are very important form of data. Then documents, including government reports, when you go for meetings, your documentation at meetings, policy paper, doing policy review and all that are also forms of data. So we can say data is visual, data is storytelling, data is documentation, data is also observation. Just being observant in your environment can also give you data. For instance, there are some people who have lived in an environment for say 5-10 years. They don't even know their neighbors. They don't know what happens in the environment where they live. But there are also people who are very observant because they want to be able to understand how the environment they live affect their lifestyle, affect their health, affect their security and the like. So observation is another way of getting data. So how do you date your data? I know that sounds cliche, but how do you date your data? Getting to know your data first is the first thing. Says data should be approached with the same level of openness and curiosity as your first date. So we all know what a date is as a man, as a woman, because we are all adults. Just imagine you're approaching your data collection as if you are going on a date. So it simply means there are different processes to data. For instance, the first thing you need to do is to be very clear, be curious, and be open about the approach you want to use about your data collection. Acquainting yourself with your data's origin, the quality of the data, and the future and the goals. What's the goal of your data, for instance? If you just wake up and start collecting data without a focus, of course, it's effort in futility. So for you to be able to begin the process, you must be clear, you must be open, you must be curious to know why you are collecting that data in first instance. Then secondly, you need to strengthen the bond. It's just like going on a dinner date, getting to know yourself, getting to familiarize. For instance, when you go into a community, you want to get your data, which you have identified in your first date. You don't just enter the community because you feel, oh, it's open, it's my environment, it's my state. You need to understand who the gatekeepers are in the community, who are those stakeholders that really I need to interact with to be able to get actual data, to be able to give me access to the information that I need. For instance, if you are working with women, for instance, you want to talk about female genital mutilation, for instance, you need to be able to work with birth attendants in the community. You need to be able to work with the local delivery women in the community. You need to be able to work with nurses in the community. So this is the second stage. For you to be able to strengthen your data, putting it in a picture. I want us to think in a picture. You have moved from your first date. Now, maybe your first date was in an open place where you were trying to understand, okay, how curious you were, how important these issues you want to solve is, and how you can go about it. Now you have moved to having a dinner date with this person. And that is the place of further curiosity to understand and to build relationship so that you can get better quality of data. So thinking cap, you have to put on your thinking cap and plunge deeper into the materials, into the analysis, into the interpretation. It means that meeting these people, you'll be able to ask key questions, quality questions, to help you inform whatsoever you're going to design. Because, for instance, there are different material, different method of collecting data, which we'll talk about in the course of the training. So for you to be able to design your survey, your questionnaires, your different tools or instruments you are going to use, you need to be able to, understand how to, build relationship within the target community to be able to get that data. Also, you need to be dedicated because data collection is not an easy process. If you miss one step, it might affect the outcome or the output of your work. So you need to be able to understand that the right application of your data is the pinnacle of all that you need to do. What happened in this phase is similar to what happens in a committed relationship where both partners understand and respect each other. For instance, if you enter a community and they say in this community, or there is one sacred place that you don't need to go, you need to respect that. Because if you don't respect it, you might be kicked out of the community. Because the way Nigeria is built, the way our communities are built in Africa, there are different things that applies to community. That is why the gatekeeper is there to guide you. That is why your stakeholders are there to guide you. For instance, you want to meet the chairman of your local government, for instance. The gatekeepers will be able to give you, right information to know what time does the chairman get to the office, what part of the office do you need to wait for him, what are those things that you don't need to say when you get there that triggers in, how do you ensure that you get his buy-in and all that. So they will guide you in this process. So, there are turbulence in relationship. So if you are dating your data, you need to be prepared that it's not going to be a smooth ride. There are going to be bumps along the way and there are going to be dramas. Do you understand? So we must establish a data culture to prioritize openness, honesty, and diversity. For instance, if you are getting, data about a particular issue or problem you want to solve, you need to be open-minded. You don't need to say, I have this information already, I think I can pull through. Do you understand? You need to be open to receive, for instance, more information to help you deepen the work that you are doing. That is why you started in the first place, to get data. That is the reason why you didn't just drop into starting a program because you feel like, oh, there's an issue in my community, I want to solve it. So getting the right data will help you to strengthen the work that you are doing, to be able to work with key stakeholders when that program finally comes to life. For instance, you want to build say toilet or school in a community. You wouldn't just wake up to say, I saw a leaking roof somewhere, I want to replace the roofing sheet and all that. You need to be able to work with key stakeholders, because it doesn't just stop with changing the roofing sheet of the school. You need to be able to build a community who understands the importance of that school, who understand the importance of maintaining the infrastructure, who understand the importance of sustaining what you have built in that school. So we'll move quickly to understanding the role of data in building effective community. How do you ensure that you build data that is effective and all that? Because at CCUp, data science is an integral part of all we do. For community organizers, curators, people in policy making, data collection and analysis are even more crucial to understanding the problem that we are facing in our environment today, to help us make informed decision. So how do we ensure that we use data in the right place to ensure that we have effective campaigns, we build effective programs in our different community, in our NGOs, as community organizers, as community builders? Firstly, you need to be able to view your data not as a one-time research activity, but as a continuous planning tool that helps you in every aspect of your programmatic work. So for instance, I am collecting data to solve a particular issue in my community. At the end of the day, I was able to draw out a program to solve that problem. It doesn't necessarily mean that because that problem has been solved, I have to throw that data, I have to discard that data. No. That data would help you inform the next programmatic work that you're going to do. It's going to help you to build your repository, to be able to show at the end of the day to either funders, either the citizens, for instance, for election, and all that, to help you track the progress that you have made, to help you look at different aspects of your programs that need to be improved, to help you look at sustainability plans in all that you are doing for that program and for your work as an organization. Data also serves as a backbone for successful advocacy campaign and provides a strategic approach to tackling community problems. So by this, I will explain that by gathering data, you go through evaluation process, and these data are consistently applied throughout your program life cycle, which helps you develop a strong argument with whoever you are going to come across in the course of your program, for them to understand that there are reasons that are backing the program that you are doing. There are information you have gotten from the field, which is very, very sacrosanct, which is very, very important to help achieve the goal that you set out to achieve. So that helps you build a sense of ownership of the work that you are doing. It helps you build accountability for your work. It helps development partners and even the community that you are working with to understand that actually there was a need, and now we can track progress to say this is where we were before, this is where we are now, and this is where we need to be, for instance. Because for every project you do is a continuum. Every project is a continuum. You need to be able to track your progress, build sustainability, and see other gaps that have come up as a result of that project. We'll move to the next, which is data and advocacy. What do we mean by data and advocacy? How do we ensure that we are using data correctly for our campaign and for advocacy? For instance, ahead of the building of the GoVote learning platform, we did a co-creation session, which some of you were part of, our master volunteers, and also CSOs that work in the space, to understand the different segments of learning that we think, needs more improvement. For instance, if we say citizens should turn out to vote, do citizens actually have the right information to be able to, understand how to mobilize their community, how to go about, advocacy, how to go about community mobilizing? So we sat down in that program through a co-creation process, and we are able to map out 9 courses to say these courses are very important if we want, an improvement in the citizenry participation in election. So for us to be able to use data effectively for advocacy, you would not be working in silo. You need to work with people. You need to work with communities. You need to, enter the minds of people in your environment to be able to get information, which is data in the long run, from them to help you inform your work. So what that process does is that it helps you identify the problem. What is the problem in this community, for instance? How do we solve it? So I'll use the example of the GoVote learning platform again. For instance, in that platform, we have a course on community organizing. Yes, a lot of people, for instance, a lot of Gen Zs, they are very eager from what we saw from the 2023 election, to participate, to want to get involved in the governance process. But not all of them have the right information to be able to do that. So by going to that course that we have created, for instance, they'll be able to understand, that aspect of community mobilizing. So your advocacy should be informed by data to be sure that you are not just creating, or you are creating to make impact. You are creating to improve learning. You are creating to improve knowledge. Also, for you to have a very effective advocacy, you need to be strategic in your planning, in terms of it encompasses all the resources, all the infrastructure, all the community engagement that you need to do to be able to optimize your advocacy, your campaign, and every other thing that you need to learn in the process. For instance, when you say the problem statement, can you all see my screen, please? Okay, thank you. You need to understand what is the foundation of this problem that you want to solve. How does data help you transform this community concern into, tangible, form, into tangible action plan that you can use to advocate? For instance, if there's a bad road in your community, you need to be able to understand what was the problem, what was the foundation, what was the cause of that bad road. Was it because some people went to the road and damaged it? Was it because of rainfall? Was it because of all the different factors that you can think of? So getting that data, understanding the problem, will help you, to draw out a program or an advocacy to ensure that that problem is not just solved at the surface, but it goes down to, the root of the problem, to help ensure that that problem is not just solved in the temporary, but has a lasting solution. So analyzing your data helps you to uncover these important issues to ensure that we are not just innovating because, or solving problem because we feel like there are so many problems around us, we want to be part of problem solving, but because we want to make lasting impact. For instance, if there's a resident that lack water, for instance, you need to be able to understand what is the root cause of that water issue that they are having. Are there interventions that have come before that were not sustained? Why were they not sustained? You need to be able to ask these important questions for you to progress in terms of your problem statement. Also, in terms of strategic planning, you need to understand who the stakeholders are. Do your stakeholders analysis and your stakeholders mapping. Do you understand before you go ahead with your advocacy? Understand that in this advocacy or in this campaign, your landscape matters. The power and the influence around this key issue matters. Because if you don't understand this power and the influence around this issue, you might not be able to even solve the problem in the first instance. For instance, I've seen a situation where people come up with programs, but communities that they want to help with this problem end up frustrating them. For instance, you know the story of the borehole, and I've heard this in different fora, where a community was lacking water, and some people came up to say, okay, let's give them a borehole, let's sink a borehole for them. They sank a borehole for them, but at the end of the day, the community people never went to that borehole to fetch water. They still preferred going to their stream and all that. And you know, the borehole project was abandoned, and at the end of the day, they came back, they saw that the place has been taken over by, you know, grass and every other thing. And they had to go down now to, you know, meet the stakeholders to say, what's the problem? Is there an issue? Why didn't you use this, you know, the water that we have provided? And they found out that the community did not just lack water, but there are underlying issues, you know, that makes them bond better, that bringing that water close to them has not been able to solve. For instance, some of the men said that because of the lack of amenities, because of poor infrastructure, because they have small houses and all that, and plenty children, they were not able to, you know, meet their matrimonial needs when their children are around. So going to the stream, sending the children to the stream, which is farther away from the village, helps them get close to their wife, help them bond more, and every other thing that you think you can't imagine. Do you understand? So bringing that water close to them was sort of not solving their issues, but rather, you know, taking that freedom, that bond they usually have with their wives away from them, and every other issues. Also, we have to look at who are the target audience of our intervention, and how do we ensure that we are collecting the data to help, you know, meet the needs of this target audience. For instance, if you want to look for funding, say you're drawing up a program for youth engagement or to tackle issues that have to do with, say, menstrual hygiene, for instance, you would not be asking issues of menstrual hygiene from guys, from men. For you to be able to get first-hand information, understand what women go through during their menstrual cycle, your target audience and the right audience would have to be women, for you to be able to get the right information. Also, to ensure that our messaging, our communication is right, we also need to ensure that the demographic we are targeting are not just because they are female genders, but because they will, you know, they have that level of openness and transparency to be able to share information with us. So that's where the stakeholders engagement, knowing the community gatekeepers that I mentioned earlier comes in. Also, you need to also look at data for advocacy as a way of helping you develop your communication tools, your messaging. For instance, how do you tell your stories? You tell your stories because you have data that informed your work. For instance, through infographic. If you are using infographic for your work, for instance, it means that you have done your assignments, you have been able to pull out important data for communication, so that the message in the long run is not lost in the volume of the work and reports and all that, but it is simplified and helps you to drive the points of that advocacy home to development partners, to stakeholders in other fields, to government, to policymakers, and anyone that, you know, work around the automatic area as an organization or as an individual. So for instance, for elections, for example, you wouldn't just say, oh, election is coming on Saturday. So what is the date of Saturday? What date is that Saturday? Is it Saturday 10th? Is it Saturday 12th? Is it, what month is that election? Is it in June? Is it in July? Is it in August? So your data is very important in the advocacy work that you are doing. Your data is very important in helping you build tools for communication. Your data is very important for helping you simplify the problem in terms of sharing story. For instance, our first training for this series was storytelling, which I think was a very, very, strategic training that if you have not been part of that training, at the end of this meeting, we'll be sharing with you. Please go back to that storytelling and learn from that storytelling how you can simplify your work and pass the message to your audience without stress, without, hit the nail on the head. So your data for advocacy ensures that you build effective communication tools and helps you to identify the right communication channels also. For instance, if you are on Facebook, you're on Twitter, or you're on Instagram, you need to be able to understand what data have I gotten to be able to engage my Facebook audience, because the audience in Facebook are different from the audience on Instagram. You need to be able to understand this divide, understand your demography, your target audience, to be able to, ensure that the data you have gotten is well utilized to, at the end of the day, you are not just driving a program, you are driving a program sustainably. So let's look at the data collection methods. What are the different data collection methods that we have? Can someone share? What are the different data collection methods? I know we have very strong advocates in the house.
One of them would be through focus group discussion. You can be able to get data from it. And through running of surveys, is another one. And I think another one is through interviews. As going for interviews in this community, you can be able to get data from all this.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. I also saw Jamilu. Jamilu says survey. So you're all correct, actually. You're all correct. So there are two broad ways you can collect data. You can either do a primary data collection or a secondary data collection. When we say primary data collection, it means that that information has never been gotten before from any source. So you are directly going into the field to source for that data. So secondary method of collection has to do with, data that already exists that you want to extract either from documents, either from focus group discussion, either from, people that have, access to this information. So those are the broad ways that we can collect data. So to further break it down, when you say primary and secondary, yes, it looks easy to understand, but it's also not so easy. One is quantifiable, one is qualitative. For instance, you can collect your data through surveys. You can draw up a questionnaire after you have gone through the process that we spoke about earlier. You have done your analysis, you understand your problem statement, you understand people in the community you need to engage, you understand what the issues are and not just the issues, the underlying issues, to ensure that you are not just collecting data, but you're collecting data to help you, make an impact. So you come up with your instrument, which is your survey or your questionnaire, as it's likely called. You write out your questions, and these questions should be drafted in a way that whoever is going to attempt to answer the question, would understand. So it's either you have a closed question or you have an open question. A closed question is questions that have to do with yes or no. An open questions is a question that when you ask in your survey, people are able to write down their thoughts and explain further beyond just yes and no. So you need to be able to understand what question am I going to keep closed-ended, what question am I going to keep open to help me, probe further with whatever information I am going to collect. You can also do interview, like Joshua mentioned. Interviews are usually focus group discussions or one-on-one discussions. You can gather a group of people that you think are in the group of the stakeholders that you want, to interview for that particular issue to be able to get the right data. You can also do a one-on-one. For instance, there are some issues you want to solve that you feel like if I bring people together, they might not be so open to speak. For instance, if there are opposite genders, for instance, maybe issues that have to do with women, and some women feel like this is very private to me. They wouldn't want a man to be there because it's a focus group discussion. They would prefer that, they have a one-on-one interview with you and be able to speak their mind, share with you from a very genuine place, so that you can get the information you want. So if you are carrying out an interview, you need to be able to understand your audience, to know what structure would my interview take. Is it a focus group discussion? Is it a one-on-one? Also, you can also use, observation. You can use experiments. You can also extract from documents, like I said, which is a secondary method. You can do a literature review. For instance, if you are doing a research that you are going to use to inform your work, let's say it's not an academic research, for instance, just let's say a policy research, you want to look at the policies, say policies that have to do with, data privacy in Nigeria. What does this document say? What does this document say? When you do a sort of a mapping or a desk review of all the policies, you can be able to come to your own conclusion and recommendation. So that's a way of getting data and also using the data you have got to put your own stand or to contribute to knowledge. Also, you can carry out experiments. For instance, we all did biology in school. So what biology has helped us to do is to understand different segments. So just imagine that you are carrying out an experiment and dissecting a rat. Where should you start dissecting the rat from? Do you understand? What part of that rat is more important than the other? What would dissecting the rat help me understand? So think of your experiments like you are in a biology class. You want to understand every segment. So it helps you to design your instrument. It helps you to ask the right question. It helps you to tailor your questions to the right audience. So these strategies can help us apply both primary or secondary data collection gathering, either directly as community organizers, as researchers, or as founders of different organizations, or even in our place of work. Understanding the method of collecting your data is very important in your campaigns, in your advocacy work, and every other thing that we have to do in life, because really data is life. If you look at it, everything we live, everything we breathe revolves around data. And even now that technology is advancing and informing the work that we do, you cannot just wake up and just say, I want to do this, I want to do this. There are people who would counter what you are doing because they have the right data, and they'll tell you, guy, this work that you are doing, you don't have the right data. This is what we have found out from our own end and all that. And also, if you are looking for funding, every funder works with data. Every funder verifies. Nobody wants to put their money at stake in a venture where they are not sure. So they want to be able to know what the problem is, how verifiable are these issues that you have posed in your proposal, and how can they support you with the work. So you need to be able to do your background work, which needs to be informed with data, to help you build sustainability. So let's move to the benefits of data-driven decision making. What does data-driven decision making help us to do? For instance, we've been speaking about what data is, dating your data, and every other thing that we look at about data and advocacy. What do we stand to benefit from using data to inform our work? One, it helps us to improve our outcome, whether as a student who is carrying out a research, or as a community organizer who is carrying out a campaign, a grassroots mobilization program, or a volunteer who is mobilizing citizens to come out to vote for election. What that does to you, it helps to improve outcome, because it enables you to target your intervention to enhance performance and learning results for your students, your community, your state, your country, your stakeholders in general. It also enhances performance, because when you have a work or a program or a project that is driven by data, your performance is better, your impact is more seen, and your work is more sustainable. So in the long run, it builds effectiveness, it builds efficiency, and it strengthens the work that you do. And you're also able to build your monitoring and evaluation in a way that is sustainable, because the feedback that you have gotten from your interaction will help you to even inform more programmatic work, get insights and leads into any other program that you want to. And also it helps you to build a community, because these people you have interacted with, whether you like it or not, becomes a part of your community. And you can rightly say, oh, I've worked in XYZ community, I work with these people, I work with these people. And from what you have also learned as Go Vote volunteers, I want to believe that you know how to bring communities together. For instance, if you are working in a community, you can't just stop there saying I've worked here. You need to be able to give momentum. You need to be able to engage further than that. And that is, for instance, why we have our Go Vote platform on WhatsApp. You can use any other platform that you want, that you think is more effective for you to engage. But you need to be able to bring your community together to build on the work that has been done, and also to help your work to be strengthened further. Also, the benefits of data-driven decision-making for advocacy helps you to sort of have your resources put together. It can help you work with limited resources, so that you're not just spending, but you're spending from an informed place. So a data-driven decision-making helps you to optimize the allocation of your resources in your different work, whether you work in health, you work in education, you work in election and governance, you work with sanitation and climate issues. Understanding the data, understanding where you are going, having a roadmap which your data helps you to navigate, helps your resources to be well allocated and well utilized. Also, data helps to inform policy making. For instance, if you have done a good research and you have data, you can influence policies even at the legislative level, at the local level, in your community. And you can also draw policy documents and speak from an informed place, so that people know that they are not just advocating for a change on a particular issue, but you are doing it from an informed place because you have data, you understand what the issues are, and you have been able to ask the communities, the stakeholders, who these issues affect, how they want these issues to be treated, how it impacts their life, and how they want government intervention to be done. So it is not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. It's about community, it's about people, it's about having credible data, credible information to inform the work. So for instance, in Nigeria and in Africa, we have different initiatives which resulted from research, from data, and now they are now live projects that are transforming lives and community. For instance, the Go Vote initiative started in 2015 as a result of us understanding at CCHub that, yes, there is voter apathy, there is low turnout of youth in the election, but at the same time, INEC is dishing out information that are not easy to understand. How do we bridge this gap? How do we ensure that the right information gets to citizens in the simplest form to make them take action, which is voting in the first instance? We want people to come out to vote. Then we came up with a research, we did our groundwork, we got all the data we needed, we engaged the right stakeholders, and the Go Vote learning platform and the Go Vote initiative was vetted, which is now our civic tech tool at CCHub, where we use this platform to bridge the information gap between government and citizen, between election management body and the citizen, simplifying information in the barest minimum in different languages to ensure that citizens take action, they turn out to vote for election, and they take their place as active citizens in nation building. Also, Ushahidi from Kenya is another important initiative that was vetted from the place of doing serious data search, serious research work to ensure that Ushahidi become a tool for data gathering and every other engagement that it has metamorphosed into currently. Also, we know of Tracker. Tracker is also a civic tech platform or an initiative by Budget that is helped to track different government interventions and all that across the health sector. What is primary health care like? How do we ensure that we build resilience for primary health care in communities? So let's proceed to look at what are the challenges and barriers to data collection. Can anyone try? What are the data, what are the challenges and barriers to data collection? I want to believe that we are not just all hearing about data today, and also we have done field work, we have volunteered in different frontiers. What were the challenges that you faced on the field? What are those barriers that you think exist?
For me, one of the challenges I do face when collecting data is the fact that I don't know how to put it, but it is non-compliance of participants. Like when you want to collect data, most of them will tell you that they don't want you to use the information. Even when you explain and explain and explain, they will tell you no, they don't want you to use their information and all those stuff. And then most times they go ahead to give you wrong data, especially when you are meeting those in the rural areas. Most times they go ahead to give you wrong data that when you come back, the same person telling you this is telling you the and is telling you a different thing. So most times I do have the challenge of inaccurate data collection, because most times they try to be smart, give you different information and give another person different information. So one of the challenges I do face in data collection is inaccurate data collection.
All right, thank you very much. That was very, very important. And I share your experience.
I also think communication barrier could cause lack of good data, because most times if you are sent to a community that you are supposed to get an accurate number of things that are being said, or a solution.
Okay, so I think we get your point, communication barrier. Thank you very much. So China rightly said, and like Faith rightly said, communication barrier is a challenge in data collection, and also your audience might also be giving you wrong information, wrong data. So I want to believe that the process I've taken you through these programs. Okay, thank you. Your name is Undoniri. Okay, but your name, yes, says Udochina. Thank you very much for that correction. So one issue that we face is, data security. Like, Udo has said, data security is a very big challenge. If you don't do your groundwork, if you don't understand the different process that we have talked about, you might face issues in getting your data. And at the end of the day, you might not be having the correct data, which is a very bad place to be as researchers, as community organizers. So for instance, I see on the street, people just going to communities. They are, good afternoon, ma. What's your name? My name is this. I am from XYZ. Do you understand? For instance, during the election, we were able to engage communities through different platforms. We used our social media handle to put out polls. If you notice, when a poll is being put online, there's always a part for description. So it gives an understanding to whoever wants to attend that poll, what issue you are talking about or why this is being done. So for instance, social media, for those that are familiar with LinkedIn, with Twitter, even with Instagram, if you want to put up a poll, you need to be able to explain what you want to solve and put the different answers. Oh, Mr. Dairo, I guess it's the network, but you can just put your thoughts in the chat box. Use the comment section. I would read it out. Thank you I guess the network is poor. So what are the challenges and what are the barriers? Establishing a robust system for data storage and protection to maintain data credibility and confidentiality. So for instance, when we are going into a community, like we said before, you need to be able to work with your stakeholders. If you are doing a focus group discussion, for instance, in any community, in any group, you have to first of all have a conversation with the group that you're going to be interviewing. Let them know this is the aim of the project. These are the issues we are trying to solve, and this is why we invited you. We believe that your contribution is going to help inform, and we want you to be as honest as possible. So you don't just gather people because you want a crowd. You gather people who have integrity, who have, accountability, and who you think are literate enough to understand the problem you are trying to solve and the questions you'll be asking them. And you also need to understand the language. For instance, if you are dealing with women who are not so educated, you can't be speaking big grammars to them. No, you will not be able to get quality. You will not be able to get results. You need to come down to their level. If it's speaking English, you need to speak it. If it's language, real language, you need to speak, and you feel like, oh, I don't understand this language, you need to get someone, either an interpreter or someone who understands that language, to facilitate the session, to be able to get, informed and accurate data. Because data literacy and data usage and data administration in any advocacy work or in any program you want to build needs to be very credible, needs to have integrity. So your data needs to be, built in such a way that there is security for your data. And even when you are storing your data, you need to be able to store your data in a very secure way. For instance, there are people who are doing programs, they don't have a recorder, they don't even have a phone that can record. Let's assume you can't buy a recorder. They don't have a phone that can record. They don't have a good phone that can, snap very clear quality pictures. Because like we said, visuals are also data. How do you document your focus group discussion? How do you document the training you had? For instance, how do you ensure that you have a backup plan? For instance, your phone switches off, or there's something that damages your phone in the long run, or maybe you travel to Anambra, on your way back, maybe your phone got stolen. You need to be able to factor all these challenges in between to say, if I'm collecting this data, where am I uploading it to immediately, such that in the process of transitioning from one place to the other, the data is not lost. So you need to consider that. But those are some of the challenges and barriers to data collection. Some people lost data in transit, and at the end of the day, they have to go all over the circle again to get that data. At that point, not all stakeholders are willing to turn up for that meeting. At that point, more resources is being expended, your time is being expended, other things also suffer because of this setback. Also, we have to look at handling the interpretation of data. When you get this raw data from the field, who do you give to process? Who do you give this data to evaluate? Do you have credible hands, credible M&E evaluators, or even researchers who can use this data and process it in a way that the right information are extracted, either as a report to help inform the work you want to do to publish, either as an infographic. For instance, if you have a report, say a 40-page report, who is reading that report to be able to extract the right information? Are you giving it to someone who is an amateur, who just reads the first page and goes to the table of content and extracts information that are not so even important as information in the body of the work? So you need to understand that one challenge that we face in data processing is the fact that the people who handle these data sometimes are not so skilled, they are not so professional. So for you to be able to ensure that this bottleneck is taken out, you need to employ or engage people who understand data, who handles data in a way that you are able to utilize it maximally, and you leverage your potential such that everything that you think is important to that project, to that program, is spotlighted, is given visibility when they are handling or interpreting the data. For instance, also, you need to define the guideline, the protocols for data handling. If, for instance, in your organization, who handles data, which office is or department is in charge of data? Do you just have data and throw it somewhere, maybe in your shelf in the office? Somebody else can pick it up. You only know yourself, you don't know the next person. Yes, we all work in a space, but everybody, we are all different. We are all, we have different goals, different ambition. Your data can be also lost, even right in your office. So you need to be able to know where to store your data, who is in charge of the data, what are those guidelines, what are those protocols that the person needs to know to be able to handle that data effectively, and what are the confidentiality that the person must keep to be able to handle that data. Because like I said, data are not just one-off. There are things that you need to continually work on to improve policies, programs, and it's a continuum. So there is no data that should be discarded, except data from programs like, let's say you held the capacity building program, attendance sheet, or maybe feedback form. And at the end of the day, because of the data privacy policy in Nigeria, there is a minimum number of days that you should hold people's data. If they are private data of people, and you know that we have extracted information we need from this, yes, that can be, discarded. But for programmatic work that you have labored to go and get, through primary or secondary sources, and they are for programmatic work, you need to handle them with care and confidentiality to ensure that it is in the right hand and it is safe, it is stored in the right places, and you also have backups for the data. And lastly, we'll look at data encourages a culture of continuous improvement. For instance, this is the positive side, but the bad side to this is that when we don't promote a mindset of using data for ongoing initiative to enhance our work, to ensure that we have innovation. Because if you, for instance, look at technology, look at innovation today, they are all driven by data. And for your work to be successful, you need the people that work with you to also have the mindset that is driven by data. And you need to be able to get them to a place where they understand why data is very important to the work that you do, why data is very, innovative to the work that you do, why data will help you build and sustain your initiative and enhance your work further. And if you have the right people with you, the right colleagues, the right team members, the right volunteer group, for instance, you are working on a project as volunteer, it helps you get your work done faster. It helps you, like everybody is on the same mission, rather than having people who don't even understand, who see it as stress, to say, oh, they said we should go and get this, we should go and see this stakeholder, we should go and distribute this souvenir, we should organize the focus. Some people see it as stress. So if you have such people in your team or in your programs, you need to be able to educate them and bring them to the place of knowledge to understand the data-driven mindset and why it is important for programmatic work, for campaigns, for advocacy, to be able to build sustainability. What are the future trends in data? For instance, our world is driven by technology. Everything we do now is technology. Everybody speaks about tech, everybody speaks about innovation. So now that we have understood what data is, how data drives our work, how data helps us to build sustainability, what are the trends that we are seeing in data management or in data use for advocacy? So the future trends for data use will be that personalized learning and adaptive learning technologies are going to be used. For instance, tailoring educational materials, advocacy materials to individual needs through technology-driven adaptive learning method like AI and machine learning is the trend of data. For the AIs that we use today, the ChatGPT, the Cloudy AI, and the likes, they are all driven by data that we're feeding into them. They were trained by data, which now puts us in a place of ease where work is being done faster, impact is being reached faster because of data. So we are seeing that trend. And also, we are also seeing an increase using big tech and predictive analysis. So this effort to utilize data sets extensively and predictive model to forecast trend, student performance, and educational outcomes. So this sounds like big English. Let me break it down. I said before that Data is not just a one-off data gathering. Whatever data you gather will help you to inform the next direction of your work, your program, or your advocacy. So what this simply means that you can predict the trend of your work from the data you have gotten and from the intervention that you're carrying out. It helps you to look at the performance trend. It helps you to forecast for the future. To say in the next 5 years, based on this that we have done, based on this data we have gotten, this is the trend. This is the way the outcome is going to be. This is the way the election is going to be. This is the way citizens turnout is going to be. This is the way women in politics is going to be. This is the trend. You're going to have more women, or we're going to have lesser women show up because of cyberbullying, because of lack of economic power. So the trend of the data that you have and how you have modeled that data will help you to forecast and look at trends in the industry, in the project that you are doing, to help for more decision making and all that. And also integration of social and emotional learning data. So what this does is incorporating emotional intelligence into your data helps you to understand and enhance your work, your social interaction, your well-being, and your learning environment. And lastly, we need to, the trend we're also seeing is a rise in digital assessments and real-time feedback system. For instance, when you attend a training, you see a QR code, scan this and all that. So the trend is now data collection is going to be in the form of, real-time assessment. You are getting the data, you can process it right off, and sometimes you can even get interpretation. But in the long run, for this trend to be able to make meaningful impact, to shift, this digital evaluation method, instant feedback mechanism to help us improve our work, we also need to be sure that our audience is right. For instance, if you have a training where you have 100 participants and these participants were not well sieved out, you just shared invitation to everybody because you wanted the all to be full. If you disseminate any data, any survey in that training or in that program, you might not necessarily get the right information you are looking for, because in the first place, you do not have the right people in the room. So shifting towards digital evaluation method and instant feedback is a trend that we are seeing right now. We are monitoring, and it's a pattern that's going to go on because of where technology is taking us. But we also need to, on our own, do the background work to be sure that this trend is being fed, this digital platform is being fed with the right information to help us do great work, impact our community better as change makers. Thank you very much. I will stop here for questions.